A Werewolf Romance, written by Georgina Anderson. Prologue, Flash 1, The Execution. The river sang with knives. That's what 7-year-old Brenna thought as she stood at the edge of Knife Song Canyon, small hand crushed in Eveline's grip. The water below churned white over jagged rocks, each stone blade sharp, each singing as the current struck them, a song of cutting, a song of ending. "Watch," the healer whispered, her ancient fingers digging into Brenna's shoulder. "This is what becomes of those who break the laws." Her father knelt at the cliff's edge, silver fur matted with blood, wolf form forced upon him even in death. Alpha Rykor, Corvin and Vane's father then, stood behind him, claws resting on her father's neck almost gently, almost loving. "Matthias Ashborn," Rykor's voice carried over the crowd of gathered wolves. "You have contaminated our bloodline, lain with a human, created that." Every eye turned to Brenna. She tried to make herself smaller, tried to disappear into Eveline's skirts. Her father's eyes found hers, golden, still warm, still hers. "I love you," he mouthed. Then Rykor pushed. Her father didn't scream, but Brenna did. The sound that tore from her throat wasn't human. Her bones began to break, snap, crack, reform, her jaw elongating, teeth sharpening, agony lancing through every nerve as her 7-year-old body tried to shift for the first time. Tried and failed. Tried and broke. Tried and shattered. She collapsed, convulsing, her scream becoming a howl, becoming a sob. Through the red haze of pain, she heard Eveline's voice, calm as winter. "The Veilrend prophecy has chosen her, the child of 2 worlds. She will either save us all or damn us." The river swallowed her father's body, swallowed his silence. It would be 13 years before it called for hers. Flash 2, The Failed Transformation. The forest floor tasted like copper and earth. Brenna's fingers clawed into the dirt as her spine arched, bones grinding against each other, breaking and reforming, wrong, always wrong. Fur sprouted in patches across her skin, silver white and matted with sweat. Her jaw cracked, elongating 3 inches before snapping back. "Don't scream. Don't scream. If they hear you, they'll come to watch." She bit through her lip instead, blood filling her mouth. The shift was supposed to take seconds. For her, it had been 20 minutes of this, her body at war with itself, human and wolf locked in combat inside her skin. Mongrel. Mistake. Stain. A twig snapped. Terror flooded her, cold and sharp. Someone was here. Someone was watching her break apart. "Brenna." His voice was low, careful. Not the command of an alpha's brother, but something softer. Something that sounded like grief. No, not him. Anyone but Vane's cipher. She tried to crawl away, but her legs weren't working right. One still human, one half-shifted. Useless. He moved into her line of sight, and she saw his face, saw the horror there, the pity. "Don't," she gasped. "Don't look at me." But he was already kneeling, already reaching for her. His hands, large and scarred from his own demons, carefully turned her face toward him. His dark eyes held hers, not with disgust, with recognition, with the terrible understanding of someone who knew what it meant to break. "Let me help you." "They'll exile you," she whispered. "Corvin will." "I don't care." His thumb brushed her cheekbone, wiping away blood and tears. Brenna Ashborn. Her true name. Her father's name. The name the pack had forbidden anyone to speak. Her body shuddered one final time, the shift receding like a wave, leaving her human and ruined and gasping in the dirt. Vane pulled off his jacket, covered her shaking form, and gathered her against his chest. She should have pulled away, should have protected him from the consequences of this kindness. Instead, she let herself break in his arms. He whispered, "My true name, the one no one had spoken since my mother died. And I knew he would be my salvation or my destruction. Perhaps both." Flash 3. The Eclipse. The moon bled red over Knife Song Canyon. Brenna stood at the cliff's edge, the same edge where her father had knelt 20 years before. The air tasted like smoke and copper. Behind her, the forest burned. Soren Blackthorn's pack, Corvin's pack. They'd all come for this. For her. For the prophecy's ending. Her hands were slick with blood. Not hers. Not yet. "Brenna." Vane's voice carried over the roar of the river below. He stood 10 paces back, face carved with anguish. "Please, there has to be another way." The dagger in her hand caught the eclipse light. Eveline had given it to her an hour ago. Silver. Blessed. Necessary, the old healer had said. The veil-rend prophecy scrolled through her mind in Eveline's patient voice. "When the river of knives runs red with the child of 2 worlds' blood, the barrier between realms will shatter, and the Umber Lords will return. Unless. 3 choices. The prophecy had given her 3. Die here, bleed into the river, seal the barrier forever. Save both worlds, lose everything. Kill Vane, kill her heart, and let the darkness take her. Become the Umber Lord's vessel. Live forever as something monstrous, powerful, empty." Or the 3rd choice. The one Eveline had whispered with her dying breath an hour ago. The secret she'd carried for centuries. The choice that would cost more than Brenna's life. Cost more than anyone should have to pay. Vane took a step closer. "Whatever you're thinking, we'll find another way. Together." She loved him. Gods, she loved him so much it felt like another kind of breaking. That's how she knew what she had to do. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and turned the blade. Not toward herself. Not toward him. Toward the truth they'd all missed. "The prophecy gave me 3 choices. I chose the one they never saw coming." Before we dive deeper into Brenna's impossible choice at the River of Knives, I need to know, where in the world has this story found you? Drop your location in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious where tales of cursed hybrids and forbidden bonds resonate most. And if you're ready to watch a girl called Mongrel negotiate with ancient gods, break 300-year-old curses, and find love in the darkest places, hit that subscribe button now. This is only the prologue. The breeding program, the rival pack's attack, Vane's broken promises, and the eclipse at Knife Song Canyon are still ahead. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when 2 broken souls decide to heal together. Now, let's go back 6 months and see how a forbidden bond sparked the end of everything. Chapter 1. 6 months before the eclipse. The mongrel's shack sat at the edge of pack territory, far enough from the main compound that no one had to see it unless they wanted to. Most days, no one wanted to. Brenna woke to pain, as always. Her left shoulder had dislocated during the night, another failed partial shift in her sleep. She'd learned to pop it back herself years ago. She braced her hand against the rough wooden wall, counted to 3, and slammed her weight sideways. The crack echoed through the small room. She bit down on her scream until it became a whimper, then nothing at all. Silence is survival. Dawn light filtered through gaps in the walls. The pack had built this place for her when she was 8, after she'd outgrown sleeping in Eveline's healing den. Built was generous. They'd thrown together scrap wood and called it shelter. It leaked when it rained, froze in winter. But it was hers, and more importantly, it was away from them. She dressed in the dark, worn pants, a tunic with patches on patches, boots held together with wire and hope. Her reflection in the cracked mirror showed what she always saw, her mother's face. Human. Soft features, dark hair that wouldn't quite behave, eyes too large for her thin face. Only her eyes gave her away. Amber gold, wolf bright. Wrong. The mark on her right shoulder blade burned. It always burned before a summons. They want something. She splashed cold water on her face from the basin, trying to prepare herself for whatever fresh humiliation awaited. The pack didn't call for her unless they needed something only she could do. Jobs too dangerous or too demeaning for purebloods, or unless they wanted to remind her what she was. The mark flared hot. She had 10 minutes before the pain became unbearable. She stepped outside into the morning mist. The forest was beautiful here, she'd give it that. Pine and oak, thick undergrowth, the distant sound of the river. If she ignored the scent markers designating this area as contaminated, she could almost pretend she belonged to this land. Almost. The path to the main compound wound through 2 miles of forest. She kept her pace steady, her head down. Early morning meant hunters returning from night patrol. If she was lucky, they'd ignore her. She wasn't lucky. Well, well. Orvex stepped out from behind an oak, all muscle and malice. The pack's executioner. He'd taken over the role after his father retired. The same father who'd pushed Brenna's father into Knife Song Canyon. It was a family tradition. The stain walks among us. 2 other wolves flanked him. Younger, eager to prove themselves. Brenna kept walking. Eye contact was challenge. Challenge was death. I'm speaking to you, mongrel. Orvex moved into her path. Where's your respect? Apologies. She kept her voice flat, empty. I'm summoned to the compound. I don't want to be late. Hear that, boys? It doesn't want to be late. He smiled, and it was his father's smile. What do you think the alpha wants with broken trash this early? Brenna's jaw tightened. She stared at the ground between his boots. Blood and dirt under his claws. He'd killed something recently. Or someone. With Orvex, it was hard to tell. Maybe they're finally putting her down, one of the younger wolves snickered. End the prophecy problem before the eclipse. Nah. Orvex leaned closer. She could smell his breath. Meat and rot. They're gonna breed her. Solandre's been pushing for it. Says if we force the prophecy along, we can control it. Ice flooded Brenna's veins. She'd heard the rumors, but hearing it stated so casually. I need to go. She tried to step around him. His hand shot out, grabbed her arm. Claws pricked through fabric into skin.
You go when I say. Orvex.
The voice cut through the morning like a blade. cold, absolute. Release her. Vain Cipher emerged from the mist like something conjured. Tall, dark-haired, shoulders that carried invisible weight. He wore the marks of alpha blood, the silver torque at his throat, the scars on his knuckles from dominance fights. But his eyes were what stopped people. Dark, fathomless, haunted by things he'd seen in the territory wars. He looked at Orvex the way one might look at an insect. The executioner's hand loosened immediately. Pack hierarchy was absolute. Alpha bloodline trumped everything except the Alpha himself. Just having a conversation, Vane. Orvex stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. No harm meant. You're dismissed. It wasn't a suggestion. Orvex's jaw worked, but he nodded, jerking his head at his companions. They melted back into the forest, but not before Orvex shot Brenna a look that promised retribution later. Silence settled over the path. Brenna stood very still, watching Vane from beneath her lashes. They'd barely spoken in 13 years. He'd been gone for most of it. Sent to fight in the territory wars when he was 16. Returned 2 years ago, a different person. Quieter. Harder. Broken in ways that didn't show on his skin. The few times their paths had crossed, he'd looked through her like she was mist. Not like now. Now he was looking at her directly. Are you hurt? His voice was carefully neutral. No. She touched her arm where Orvex had grabbed her. Minor scratches, already healing. Thank you, but... You shouldn't thank me. Something flickered across his face. Regret? Anger? You shouldn't have to thank anyone for basic decency. She didn't know what to say to that. In her experience, decency was a luxury the pack didn't waste on mongrels. He seemed to struggle with something. Then, my brother summoned you. I know. The mark on her shoulder blade still burned. I'm going now. Brenna. Her name in his mouth sounded different than when others spoke it, less like a curse. Whatever he asks, be careful. Corvin's been... different lately. The eclipse has him on edge. 6 months away. The prophecy's deadline. I'm always careful. It came out sharper than intended. His lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Yes, I've noticed. Before she could parse what that meant, he stepped aside, gesturing for her to continue up the path. She walked past him, hyper-aware of his presence, the way he smelled like pine and smoke, and something darker underneath. She made it 3 steps before he spoke again. Brenna. She turned. He wasn't looking at her anymore, gaze fixed on something in the distance. If things get bad in there, if Corvin or Solandre propose something you can't survive, find me after. Her heart stuttered. Why? Because someone should have said that to me once. He met her eyes finally, and the weight in them nearly staggered her. Before it was too late. Then he shifted. A seamless, beautiful transformation, pure blood grace, and disappeared into the forest as a massive black wolf. Brenna stood alone on the path, her shoulders still burning, her mind spinning. Find me after. She'd spent 13 years learning not to hope. Hope was more dangerous than any shift, any punishment. Hope made you weak. But Vane Cipher had just planted a seed of it in her chest, and she didn't know if she had the strength to dig it out. The compound waited. She walked toward it, each step heavier than the last. The main hall of the cipher pack was built from stone and timber, designed to intimidate. High ceilings, ancestral banners hanging from the rafters. The Alpha's throne carved from a single piece of oak at the far end. Pack members lined the walls, witnesses to whatever was about to happen. Brenna entered through the side door, the one marked for lesser wolves and servants. She kept her head down, but she felt every eye track her movement. Alpha Corvin Cipher sat on his throne, one leg draped casually over the armrest. He looked like Vane, same dark hair, same sharp features, but where Vane's eyes held ghosts, Corvin's held calculation. He was a strategist, a player of long games, dangerous in entirely different ways. Solandre stood at his right hand, beautiful, ambitious, utterly ruthless. She ran the pack's bloodline programs, determined to breed stronger wolves for the coming conflicts. Her gaze on Brenna was the look of someone assessing livestock. "Ah, the mongrel arrives." Corvin's voice carried warmth that didn't reach his eyes. "Right on time. Impressive, considering your condition." Brenna knelt in the center of the hall, head bowed. "Alpha, you summoned me." "I did." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Tell me, Brenna, do you know what happens in 6 months?" Her throat tightened. "The eclipse." "The eclipse," he repeated. "And with it, the Veilrend prophecy reaches its culmination. 20 years of waiting, wondering what the hell you're for." He smiled. "We've decided it's time to find out." Solandre stepped forward, her heels clicking against stone. "You're 20 years old, fertile, capable of carrying despite your defects." She said it clinically, like Brenna wasn't there. "The prophecy speaks of the child of 2 worlds. We believe producing more hybrids will clarify the prophecy's requirements."
"No. The breeding program begins in 1 week," Corvin continued. "We've selected 3 males of strong bloodlines. You'll be housed in the compound, monitored by Eveline, and— No. The word escaped before Brenna could stop it. Silence crashed over the hall. Corvin's eyebrows rose. "Excuse me?" Brenna's hands shook. She'd just refused a direct order from the Alpha. That was death. But the alternative, being passed between males like a brood mare, forced to carry children who would be as broken as her. "I said no, Alpha." She lifted her head, met his gaze. "I won't do it." Solandre's face darkened. "You don't have a choice, mongrel." "Then kill me." Brenna rose to her feet, and a ripple of shock moved through the watching pack. "Kill me now, because I won't survive your program anyway. You know my body barely handles my own shifts. Pregnancy would kill me. You'd lose the prophecy child and gain nothing." It was a calculated risk. They needed her alive until the eclipse. After that, her value was uncertain. Corvin studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Brave. Stupid, but brave." He stood, descended the steps from his throne. "You think you can bargain with me, little mongrel? You, who exist only because we allow it?" He circled her slowly, predator assessing prey. "Here's what's going to happen. You have 1 week to prepare yourself. Make peace with it. Because in 7 days, you'll be moved to the breeding wing, and you'll fulfill your purpose." He stopped in front of her, tilted her chin up with one claw. Or we'll do it by force. Your choice. Brenna held his gaze. I choose death. We'll see. He released her, waved dismissively. Get out. Your defiance bores me. She turned to go, legs unsteady. Oh, and Brenna. Corvin's voice stopped her at the door. If you run, we'll hunt you down and make an example that will make your father's execution look merciful. Understood? Understood, Alpha. She walked out of the hall on shaking legs, past the staring pack members, into the morning light. 1 week. The seed of hope Vane had planted withered immediately. There was no salvation coming. There never had been. She made it to the tree line before her legs gave out. She collapsed against an oak, pressed her face to the bark, and tried to remember how to breathe. Find me after, Vane had said. But what could even he do against the Alpha's decree? He was Corvin's brother, but he wasn't pack leader. Interfering would mean exile at best, execution at worst. She couldn't ask that of him. Couldn't ask that of anyone. She was alone. As always. A twig snapped behind her. She spun, expecting Orvex or one of Salandre's enforcers. Instead, Eveline emerged from the shadows, her ancient face creased with concern. Child, the healer said softly. We need to talk. Now. Chapter 2. The Healer's Truth. Eveline's cottage sat deep in the forest, protected by wards older than the pack itself. Brenna had spent half her childhood here, learning to set her own broken bones, to stitch wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding, to survive transformations that should have killed her. The interior smelled like dried herbs and smoke. Shelves lined every wall, crammed with bottles and bones, ancient texts in languages Brenna couldn't read. Eveline moved through the space with the ease of centuries, gathering items Brenna couldn't identify. Sit. The healer gestured to the worn chair by the fire. Brenna sat, her body finally registering the morning's trauma. Her shoulder ached. Her hands trembled. The mark on her back had stopped burning, but phantom pain lingered. Eveline pressed a cup into her hands. Drink. It'll help. The tea tasted bitter, but warmth spread through Brenna's chest immediately. Some of the shaking subsided. You were in the hall, Brenna said quietly. You heard. I hear everything that matters, child. Eveline lowered herself into the opposite chair with a sigh. At 243 years old, she was the oldest wolf in 3 territories. Some whispered she'd been alive when the Veilren prophecy was first written. And yes, I heard Corvin's decree. Can you stop it? Even as she asked, Brenna knew the answer. No, the Alpha's word is law. Eveline's gnarled hands wrapped around her own cup. But I can give you something more valuable than intervention. What? Truth. The old woman's eyes gleamed in the firelight. The prophecy isn't what they think it is, Brenna. It never has been. Brenna's pulse quickened. What do you mean? Eveline rose, moved to a locked cabinet in the corner. She withdrew a leather-bound book, its pages yellow with age, and returned to her seat. When she opened it, Brenna saw text in Old Tongue, the language of the first packs. The Veilrend prophecy, Eveline began, was written 3 centuries ago by a seer named Maritha.
She foresaw the thinning of the barrier between our world and the realm of the Umber Lords, ancient beings of pure destruction. The prophecy states that when the child of two worlds comes of age during the blood eclipse, 3 paths open. I know this part, Brenna whispered. Die and seal the barrier, become their vessel, or...
The 3rd path is the one they've kept from you. Eveline's finger traced the text. Listen carefully. When the child stands at the river of knives, blood and choice converging, she may offer not her own death, but the death of what chains her. Break the binding, shatter the lie, and remake the worlds as they were meant to be. Brenna stared. I don't understand. The prophecy doesn't require your death or your corruption, child. It requires you to destroy the thing that keeps our world separated in the first place. Eveline leaned forward. The barrier between human and wolf, between our realm and theirs, it isn't natural. It was created, forced. A punishment for an ancient crime our ancestors committed. What crime? The slaughter of the Umber Lords' first children. We hunted them to extinction, fearing their power. Eveline's voice grew heavy. The barrier was their curse upon us, dividing us from humans, from our own humanity, trapping us in this half-existence. You, Brenna, born of both worlds, are the key to undoing it. Brenna's mind reeled. But if I break the barrier, the Umber Lords will return. Corvin said... Corvin knows only what the corrupted texts tell him. The truth has been buried, child. Buried by alphas who benefit from division, from fear, from keeping the packs fractured and fighting. Eveline's eyes burned with intensity. If you break the barrier correctly, you don't unleash the Umber Lords. You free them. You give them what was stolen. Their children's lives acknowledged, mourned, honored. And in return, they lift the curse. Humans and wolves can coexist again. Your children won't be abominations. They'll be bridges. Silence filled the cottage. Brenna felt the weight of it crushing down on her chest. Why didn't you tell me before? Because you weren't ready. Because I needed to be certain. Eveline reached out, cupped Brenna's face with surprising gentleness. And because the path I'm describing will cost you everything you might have wanted. Breaking the barrier requires a sacrifice, Brenna. Not death, but something that might hurt worse. What sacrifice? Eveline's expression turned sorrowful. Your bond. When you find it, when you find him, you'll have to sever it completely at the moment of greatest connection. The agony of that breaking is what powers the ritual. Love freely given, then destroyed. It's the only thing strong enough to undo a curse born from genocide. Brenna's throat closed. She thought of Vane in the forest, his haunted eyes, his impossible offer. Find me after. I don't have a bond, she managed. Eveline smiled sadly. Don't you? Before Brenna could respond, footsteps crunched outside the cottage. Heavy, deliberate. Both women tensed. The door opened without preamble. Vane's cipher ducked through the entrance, his expression dark. Eveline, I need... He stopped when he saw Brenna, surprise flickering across his face. I didn't know you were here. The child needed counsel, Eveline said smoothly, already closing the prophecy book. We were just finishing. Vane's gaze moved between them, clearly sensing he'd interrupted something important. I can come back.
No. Brenna stood quickly, needing to escape before her emotions betrayed her. I was leaving. She moved toward the door, but Vane didn't step aside. They stood inches apart in the narrow doorway, close enough that she could see the silver flecks in his dark eyes, smell the forest on his skin. You spoke to Corvin, he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Yes. And? She couldn't tell him. Couldn't drag him into this mess. It's handled. Brenna. Her name was almost a plea. I told you to find me if... It's handled, she repeated, harder this time. She pushed past him into the morning air, nearly running. Brenna, wait! But she was already shifting, or trying to. The transformation seized her mid-stride, pain exploding through her bones. She gasped, stumbled, felt her knees hit the dirt. No, not now. Not in front of him. But her body didn't care about pride. Her spine arched, ribs cracking as they tried to expand. Her skull reshaping wrong, always wrong. A sound between a scream and a howl tore from her throat. Hands caught her before she hit the ground completely. Vane. I've got you, he murmured, lowering them both to the earth. I've got you. Just breathe. She couldn't breathe. Could barely think past the agony. Her right arm was stuck halfway, fur and skin and exposed muscle. Her hand twisted into something between fingers and claws. Eveline! Vane's shout was sharp with panic. Bring her inside! The healer's voice seemed to come from very far away. Brenna felt herself being lifted, carried. The world tilted and spun. When she could focus again, she was on Eveline's examination table, Vane's face hovering above hers, and the old woman was pressing something cold to Brenna's arm. Moon's mercy, Eveline muttered. This is the worst I've seen. The shift reversed slowly, agonizingly. Brenna felt every bone slide back into place, every patch of fur retract into skin. When it finally ended, she lay gasping, soaked in sweat, Vane's hand gripping hers so tightly her fingers ached.
She realized he was shaking. How long has it been this bad? He demanded, not of her, but of Eveline. Getting worse every month, the healer said grimly. The stress accelerates it. And with Corvin's decree... What decree? Vane's voice went deadly quiet. Brenna tried to pull her hand free. Don't. But Eveline had already spoken. The breeding program. He's forcing her into it. 1 week. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Vane stood slowly, his hand slipping from Brenna's. When he turned, his face was a mask of cold fury she'd never seen before. He can't, Vane said softly. She'll die. The Alpha has decreed it. Eveline didn't back down from his anger. And unless you plan to challenge Corvin for leadership, which we both know you won't, there's nothing to be done. There's always something. Vane paced the small space like a caged wolf. What if she runs? They'll hunt her. What if I hide her? They'll find her and execute you both. Then what? He spun toward Eveline. You're the oldest wolf alive. You know everything. There has to be a way. Eveline looked at Brenna, a question in her ancient eyes. Brenna shook her head slightly. Don't tell him. Don't give him hope when there isn't any. But the healer had other ideas. There is one way, Eveline said slowly, but it requires something neither of you may be willing to give. Vane stopped pacing. Tell me. The bond. Eveline gestured between them. I can feel it forming, even if you can't yet. You're drawing to each other, have been since you returned from the war, Vane. If you complete it, if you mate bond before the week is out, Corvin cannot touch her. Pack law forbids breaking an established bond. Brenna sat up too quickly, the room spinning. No. It's perfect, Vane said, already thinking through logistics. We claim the bond, and— No! Brenna's voice cracked. You don't understand what you'd be giving up. A bond with me, with a mongrel, with the prophecy hanging over my head. It would destroy you. Corvin would never forgive it. The Pack would shun you. And when the eclipse comes, I don't care. Vane crossed to her in 3 strides, gripped her shoulders. Look at me, Brenna. I don't care about Corvin's approval. I don't care about the Pack's opinion. I've spent 2 years back from war, feeling like I was sleepwalking through my life, and the only time I've felt real, felt alive, is when— He stopped himself, jaw clenching. When what? She whispered. His hands gentled on her shoulders. When I see you. When I know you're nearby. When I hear your heartbeat in the forest and know you survived another night. His voice dropped. I've been telling myself it was just empathy. Just seeing another broken thing and recognizing it. But that's a lie. Brenna's heart hammered against her ribs. Vane. I dream about you, he confessed roughly. Your voice, your strength, the way you keep surviving things that should kill you. And I wake up wanting to burn down the Pack that makes you suffer. Tears pricked her eyes. You can't bond with me to save me. That's not what bonds are for. No. He tilted her face up, forcing her to meet his eyes. I'd bond with you because when I look at you, I see the only person in this territory who understands what it means to be trapped inside your own skin. Who knows what it's like to be 2 things at war? Who survives anyway? Your brother will kill you. He'll try. A dark smile touched Vane's lips. Let him. Stop. Brenna pulled away, needing distance to think. This is insane. We barely know each other. I know enough. He didn't follow her, giving her space. I know you're braver than any warrior I fought beside. I know you'd rather die than let them break you. I know. His voice roughened. I know I haven't felt this certain about anything since before the war destroyed me. Eveline watched them both, her expression unreadable. Brenna's mind raced. The prophecy, the sacrifice, the bond that would need to be severed. If she bonded with Vane now, saved herself from the breeding program, she'd only be tying him to her destruction 6 months from now. But 6 months was better than 1 week. 6 months where she might find another way, where she might solve the prophecy without the terrible sacrifice Eveline described. 6 months of not being alone. That's selfish, her mind whispered, using him like this. But her heart, her traitorous, desperate heart, whispered back, what if it's not using? What if he's right? I need time, she said finally. To think. Vane nodded, though disappointment flickered across his face. How much time? I don't have much to give. 3 days? 3 days, he agreed. And Brenna, whatever you decide, I meant what I said in the forest. If things get bad, you find me. Bond or no bond, I'm not letting them destroy you. He left then, ducking out of the cottage, leaving Brenna alone with Eveline and the weight of impossible choices. The healer regarded her quietly. You didn't tell him about the sacrifice. How could I? Brenna's voice broke. How do I tell him that falling for me is signing his death warrant? That the prophecy requires me to destroy the very thing he's offering? Perhaps, Eveline said softly. You trust that he's strong enough to make his own choices, even the painful ones.
He doesn't know what he's choosing. Neither do you, child. The old woman touched Brenna's hand. The prophecy speaks of sacrifice, yes, but it also speaks of remaking worlds. Sometimes the thing we fear losing becomes the thing that saves us. Have faith. But Brenna had learned long ago that faith was a luxury for people who hadn't watched their fathers die. She had 3 days to decide. Accept Vane's offer and doom them both, or face the breeding program alone. Neither option felt like surviving. Both felt like dying in different ways. That night, Brenna dreamed of the River of Knives. She stood at the edge, just as she had in the vision from the prologue, but this time, she wasn't alone. Vane stood beside her, his hand in hers, and when she looked down, their fingers were fused together, not touching, but merged, bone and flesh and blood intertwined. "I can't let go," she told him. "I know," he replied. "Neither can I." The river sang its knife song below them, and the eclipse moon bled red overhead. "One of us has to jump," she whispered. Vane smiled, and it was the saddest thing she'd ever seen. "Then we jumped together." She woke, gasping, her cheeks wet with tears. The mark on her shoulder blade burned. 4 days until the breeding program. 6 months until the eclipse. No time at all until everything shattered. She rose in the darkness, dressed, and made a decision. If she was going to destroy Vane's cipher, she'd at least give him the truth first. He deserved that much. Chapter 3. The Truth Between Them. Dawn hadn't broken when Brenna reached Vane's dwelling. The Cipher brothers lived in the Alpha Complex, a sprawling structure of stone and timber at the heart of Pack territory. Corvin occupied the main house, playing Alpha even in his private quarters. Vane had chosen the guest house, a smaller building tucked among the pines, far enough from his brother's watchful eye to maintain some independence. Brenna had never been here before. Lesser wolves didn't approach Alpha housing uninvited. She almost turned back 3 times. But the dream clung to her. Their fused hands, the impossible choice, his sad smile. Then we jumped together. She needed him to understand what he was offering before he offered it again. She raised her hand to knock. The door opened before her knuckles touched wood. Vane stood in the doorway, shirtless, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes widened when he saw her. "Brenna." Her name sounded like a prayer and a question. "It's barely dawn." "I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come." She stepped back. His hand shot out, caught her wrist gently. "Don't. I didn't mean. Come in, please." She hesitated, then crossed the threshold. The interior was sparse but comfortable. Books stacked everywhere. Philosophy, history, war tactics. A half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table. Maps covering one wall, marked with territories and battle sites. This was the space of someone still fighting wars in his head. Vane closed the door, and suddenly the room felt very small. "I couldn't sleep," he admitted, moving to pull on a shirt from the back of a chair. "Been thinking about yesterday. About what I said." "That's why I'm here." Brenna forced herself to meet his eyes. "I need to tell you something before you make any decisions about bonding. About me." He stilled, shirt halfway on. "All right." "The prophecy. The real prophecy. Not what Corvin thinks it is. It's worse than you know." She gripped her hands together to keep them from shaking. "Eveline told me the truth yesterday. If I survived the eclipse, if I fulfill what's required, it demands a sacrifice." "Your death." His voice went flat. "I assumed as much." "No. Worse." She took a breath. "It requires me to find a bond. To find love. And then destroy it. Sever it completely at the moment of deepest connection. The agony of that breaking is what powers the ritual to remake the barrier between worlds. Vane went very still.
Eveline told you this?
Yes. The prophecy isn't about my death, or becoming a vessel for the Umber Lords. It's about breaking the curse that divided humans and wolves centuries ago. But the price is... Her voice cracked. The price is sacrificing the bond. Whoever I bond with, I'll have to destroy them. Destroy us. She waited for him to recoil, to understand the poison she carried. Instead, he finished pulling on his shirt and moved closer.
Let me see if I understand, he said quietly. You came here, before dawn, to warn me off, to make sure I knew the cost before I offered again.
Yes.
Because you're trying to protect me.
Someone should. The words came out bitter.
Everyone else seems content to let you throw yourself away.
His lips quirked.
And you think bonding with you would be throwing myself away?
Wouldn't it? She gestured helplessly. 6 months, Vane. That's all you'd get. 6 months before I'd have to tear the bond apart and destroy us both in the process. What kind of life is that?
6 months of not being alone,
he said simply.
6 months of actually living instead of just surviving. 6 months of knowing someone chose me, despite everything.
You're not listening. I am. He closed the distance between them, his hand coming up to cup her face. I'm listening to every word, and I'm telling you it doesn't change anything. Brenna's breath caught. How can you say that? Because I've been dead inside for 2 years, Brenna. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. The things I saw in the war, the things I did, they hollowed me out. I came back to this pack and felt nothing. No joy, no pain, just emptiness. Until I saw you in that forest, breaking apart, and something in me recognized something in you. Tears burned her eyes. That's not enough reason to... I've spent months trying to stay away from you, he continued, his voice rough with honesty. Telling myself it was forbidden, dangerous, pointless. But every time I catch your scent in the forest, every time I hear you've survived another shift, I feel alive again. Even if it's just for a moment. Vane, 6 months of that is worth more than a lifetime of numbness. His other hand came up, cradling her face between his palms. And maybe we find another way. Maybe Eveline's wrong about the sacrifice. Maybe there's a loophole, a different path. But even if there isn't, I'd rather have 6 months of something real than spend the rest of my life wondering what I was too afraid to reach for. A sob escaped her throat. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't push me away. He leaned his forehead against hers. Let me make my own choices, even if they're painful ones. Let me choose you. Why? The question came out broken. Why me? You could have anyone. Someone whole. Someone who won't destroy you. Because you're the bravest person I've ever met, he said fiercely. Because you survived things that would have broken anyone else. Because when I look at you, I don't see a mongrel or a mistake. I see someone who refuses to give up even when the world has given them every reason to. His hands trembled slightly against her face. Because, he whispered, I think I've been half in love with you since the first time I saw you refuse to bow to Orvex's taunts. Since I watched you set your own broken bones in the forest and keep walking. Since I realized you were stronger than any warrior I commanded, and you didn't even know it. Brenna couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The bond Eveline had mentioned. She could feel it now, a golden thread forming between them, fragile and new and terrifying. This is insane, she whispered. Probably. He smiled against her forehead. But I've done the same thing my whole life. Followed orders, fought my brother's wars, buried my trauma, and pretended to be fine. Look where it got me." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. 3 days, you said. You needed 3 days to think." His dark gaze searched hers. "Have you decided?" She should say no. Should protect him from the destruction coming. But the dream haunted her. Their joined hands, his sad smile, we jumped together. And beneath the fear, beneath the certainty of doom, something else stirred. What if he's right? What if 6 months of not being alone is worth the price? "If we do this," she said slowly, "if we bond, you need to promise me something. Anything. When the time comes, when the eclipse arrives and I have to make the choice, you let me go." Her voice shook but held. "You don't try to save me. You don't sacrifice yourself. You let me do what needs to be done." Pain flashed across his face. "Brenna, promise me, Vane, or I walk away right now." He was silent for a long moment, war raging in his eyes. "I promise," he finally said, "that I will do everything in my power to find another way. That I won't let you face this alone. And that when the time comes," his jaw clenched, "when the time comes, I'll respect your choice, even if it kills me." It wasn't the promise she'd asked for, but it was the truth, and somehow that mattered more. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay?" Hope kindled in his expression. "Okay." She took a shaking breath. "Let's do this insane thing. Let's bond." Vane's eyes darkened with emotion. Relief, fear, want, wonder all mixed together. "Are you sure?" "No." She laughed, and it came out watery. "But I haven't been sure of anything since my father died, and I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions." He smiled then. A real smile, the first she'd ever seen from him, and it transformed his whole face. "When?" he asked. "Now." Brenna's heart pounded. "Before I lose my nerve. Before Corvin finds out and stops us. Before—" Vane kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, like he was afraid she might break. But when she gasped against his mouth, when her hands fisted in his shirt and pulled him closer, something ignited between them. The bond. She felt it snap into place like a lightning strike, golden and burning and right. His emotions flooded through it. Fierce protectiveness, desperate longing, bone-deep relief at finally not being alone. And beneath it all, love. Broken and battered and barely formed, but real. She kissed him back harder, pouring everything into it, her fear and her hope, and her terrible, traitorous need for this, for him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the bond thrummed between them like a living thing. "Is it done?" she whispered. "Is that all it takes?" "No." His voice was rough. "There's more. The claiming bite, the—" He stopped, searching her face. "We don't have to rush. We can wait until you're ready." "I'm ready." She was terrified, but she was ready. "Show me." What followed was nothing like Brenna had imagined. Vane was gentle, reverent, treating her like she was something precious instead of broken. He mapped every scar on her skin with his fingers, his lips, murmuring against her shoulder blade where the mark burned. "Beautiful," he whispered. "Every part of you." When he finally bit down, the claiming mark that would seal the bond, the pain was sharp and bright and quickly melted into something else. Something that felt like home. The bond solidified completely, and suddenly she could feel him as clearly as she felt herself. His wonder, his fear, his absolute certainty that this was right, even if it was doomed. Afterward, they lay tangled together in his bed, the morning sun filtering through the windows. "Corvin is going to lose his mind," Vane said against her hair. "Probably try to kill us both," she agreed. "Worth it." She tilted her head back to look at him. "You say that now. I'll say it always." He traced the claiming mark on her neck, his mark, visible for all the pack to see. "You're mine now. I'm yours. Whatever comes, we face it together." The bond pulsed with truth. Brenna let herself believe it, just for a moment. Let herself imagine a world where they had more than 6 months, where the prophecy didn't end with her destroying them both. 6 months, she reminded herself. Make them count. She kissed him again, slower this time, savoring it. Outside, the pack was beginning to stir. Soon, someone would notice Brenna's absence from her shack, would see Vane's claim mark on her neck, would run to tell Corvin. But for now, in this quiet moment, they were just 2 broken people who'd found each other in the darkness. It would have to be enough. They dressed slowly, neither wanting to break the fragile peace. Brenna was pulling on her boots when Vane's hand caught hers. "Before we go out there," he said quietly, "before we face Corvin and the pack, I need you to know something." "What?" "I don't regret this. No matter what happens, no matter how it ends, I will never regret choosing you." The bond flooded with his sincerity. Brenna's throat tightened. "Even when I have to break it? Break us?" "Even then?" He pressed his forehead to hers. "Because the alternative was living the rest of my life half dead. And I'm done with that." A commotion outside shattered the moment. Raised voices, running feet. Vane moved to the window, his expression darkening. "It's Corvin. He's brought enforcers. He knows." Brenna's stomach dropped. "He knows." Vane turned back to her, his jaw set. "Stay behind me. Let me handle this." "Vane, trust me." He cupped her face, kissed her once more. "I've got you." The door slammed open. Corvin Cypher stood framed in the entrance, fury radiating from every line of his body. Behind him, Orvex and 3 other enforcers blocked the exit. "Hello, brother," Vane said calmly, not moving from in front of Brenna. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Corvin's eyes went to the claiming mark on Brenna's neck. His expression twisted into something ugly. "You bonded with the mongrel," he said, each word dripping venom. "You defied pack law, your alpha's decree, and every shred of common sense." "I bonded with my mate," Vane corrected, "which is well within my rights." "Your mate?" Corvin laughed, sharp and cutting. "The prophecy child, the breeding program candidate. You've complicated everything." "Good." Vane's voice turned to steel. "Your breeding program was barbaric. I stopped it. You stopped nothing." Corvin stepped into the room, the enforcers following. "A bond can be broken if the Alpha deems it detrimental to pack interests. And I so deem it." Ice flooded Brenna's veins. "You can't. I can." Corvin's gaze flicked to her with disgust. "You're too valuable to waste on my brother's savior complex. The bond will be severed. You'll be returned to the breeding program. And Vane," he looked back at his brother, "you'll be stripped of your bloodline rights and exiled." "Try it," Vane said softly, dangerously. "And I'll challenge you for leadership right here, right now." The room went silent. Alpha challenges were blood fights, to the death. Corvin's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't dare, wouldn't I?" Vane took a step forward. "You've ruled through fear and cruelty since Father died. You've turned this pack into a prison. I've stayed quiet because I didn't care enough to fight. But that's changed." His hand found Brenna's, their fingers interlacing. "She's changed me," he continued. "And if you want to break our bond, you'll have to go through me first." Corvin studied his brother for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "No," he said. "I don't think I will." Brenna's relief was short-lived. "Because there's an easier way to handle this." Corvin gestured to Orvex. "Seize the mongrel." Everything happened too fast. Orvex lunged forward. Vane shifted immediately, his wolf form massive and black, snarling. But 3 other enforcers shifted too, surrounding him, snapping at his flanks. Orvex's hand closed around Brenna's arm. She tried to shift, to fight back, but her body betrayed her. The transformation started and stopped, bones breaking without completing, leaving her gasping in agony. No! Vane's roar shook the room. He threw off one enforcer, lunged for Brenna. Corvin shifted too, larger than Vane, alpha strong, and slammed into his brother. They went down in a snarling mass of fur and fangs. Orvex dragged Brenna toward the door. Through the bond, she felt Vane's panic, his fury, his desperate need to reach her. But Corvin had him pinned, and the other enforcers were closing in. "Vane!" she screamed. His eyes, golden and wild, found hers across the room. "I'll come for you," his voice echoed through the bond. "I swear it. I'll find you." Then Orvex hauled her through the door, and Vane disappeared from sight. Chapter 4. The Breeding Wing. The breeding wing occupied the eastern section of the main compound, a place Brenna had only seen from the outside. Stone walls, barred windows, guards posted at every entrance. A prison dressed up as medical facility. Orvex shoved her through the entrance and into Salandra's waiting hands. The beautiful wolf looked Brenna over with clinical assessment, noting the claiming mark on her neck with a frown. "Well, this complicates things." "Corvin wants the bond broken," Orvex reported. "Said to prepare her for the program as planned." "The bond is fresh." Salandre circled Brenna slowly. "Breaking it now would likely kill her. We need her alive until the eclipse." "So what do we do?" "We work around it." Salandre's smile was cold. "The bond won't prevent conception. It'll just make the process more unpleasant for everyone involved." She gestured to 2 female attendants. "Take her to cell 3. Strip her. Full examination. I need to know if the bonding affected her fertility." "No." Brenna tried to pull away, but the attendants were strong, trained. "You can't do this. The bond, Vane will—" "Vane is being dealt with," Salandra said dismissively. "By now, Corvin has likely beaten him unconscious and thrown him in confinement. He won't be riding to your rescue, little mongrel." Through the bond, Brenna could still feel Vane, rage and pain and determination blazing like a sun. He was fighting. Still fighting, but he was losing. The attendants dragged her down a corridor lined with cells. Some were empty, others contained female wolves in various states of the breeding process. Some obviously pregnant, others gaunt and hollow-eyed, broken by the program. One of them looked at Brenna with dead eyes and whispered, "Run while you can." They threw her into cell 3. It was small, clinical. A cot, a basin, a drain in the floor. The walls were spelled with containment wards. She could feel them pressing against her skin, suppressing her wolf, making shifting impossible. The attendants stripped her efficiently, ignoring her struggles. They noted every scar, every deformity from her failed shifts, cataloging her body like inventory. "Usable," one finally declared. "The bone structure is wrong, but the reproductive organs seem intact." Brenna wanted to fight, to scream, to shift and tear them apart. But the wards held her human, and without her wolf, incomplete as it was, she had no strength to resist. They left her naked and shaking on the cot. Salandra entered a few minutes later with Eveline in tow. The old healer's face was carefully blank, but Brenna saw the rage simmering in her ancient eyes. "Examine her," Salandre ordered. "Confirm she can carry. Corvin wants the first breeding attempt tonight." Tonight. The word hit Brenna like a physical blow. Eveline approached slowly, her gnarled hands gentle as she helped Brenna sit up. Through the contact, she whispered so quietly only Brenna could hear, "I'm sorry, child. I tried to stop this." "Vane," Brenna started. "Alive, locked in the western tower. Corvin has guards on him." Eveline's hands moved over Brenna's body, professional, though her voice remained a whisper. "But he won't stay locked up long. He's already trying to break free." Brenna could feel it through the bond, Vane throwing himself against barriers, his wolf raging, his mind focused on a single thought. Get to Brenna. Save Brenna. Tell him to stop, Brenna whispered back. He'll hurt himself. He won't stop, not while you're here. Eveline's examination continued, her voice barely audible beneath Solandra's impatient pacing. Listen carefully. The wards in this cell suppress shifting, but they won't stop the bond. Use it. Stay connected to him. It's the only thing keeping you both alive right now. How, well? Solandra interrupted. Can she breed or not? Eveline straightened, her face a mask of professional detachment. She can, but I strongly advise against it. Her body barely handles her own shifts. Pregnancy will likely kill her. That's a risk Corvin is willing to take. Solandra moved closer, studying Brenna like a specimen. If she dies after producing one viable hybrid, we'll still have gained valuable information. Brenna's stomach turned. You're talking about me like I'm livestock. Because that's what you are. Solandra's voice was matter of fact. A resource. A means to an end. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. And if I refuse? If I fight? Solandra's smile was pitying. Then we'll sedate you, strap you down. It makes no difference to the outcome. The only question is how much you want to suffer through it. Through the bond, Brenna felt Vane's fury spike so high it nearly blinded her. He'd heard somehow, maybe through their connection, maybe through stone and walls, and his rage was incandescent. The entire building shook. Solandra frowned, looking toward the window. What was that? Another tremor. Louder this time, the sound of stone cracking. Eveline's lips twitched almost imperceptibly. I believe that would be Vane. Meanwhile, in the western tower, Vane slammed into the cell door for the 20th time, his wolf form massive with rage. The spelled silver burned his skin, but he didn't care. Couldn't care. Not when Brenna was suffering somewhere in this compound. Through the bond, he felt everything. Her fear, her violation, her desperate attempt to stay strong, and beneath it all, the horror of what was about to happen to her. Tonight. They're going to breed her tonight. His wolf howled, and the sound shook the tower's foundations. Enough! Corvin's voice came from outside the cell. You'll bring the whole structure down. Then let it fall! Vane threw himself against the door again. Blood matted his fur where silver had burned him, but he felt no pain. Only rage. You have no right to do this to her! I have every right. I'm the Alpha. You're a tyrant. Another impact. The door's hinges groaned. And if you hurt her, if you let them touch her, I will tear this pack apart, stone by stone. Corvin was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice held something Vane couldn't identify. You really care about her. The mongrel. Her name is Brenna. And yes. Vane shifted back to human form, gripping the bars with bleeding hands. I love her. You barely know her. I know enough. Vane's voice was raw. I know she's survived more than you or I ever will. I know she deserves better than being treated like an experiment. And I know. His hands tightened on the bars until his knuckles went white. I know that if you go through with this, brother or not, I will kill you. Another tremor shook the building. This one wasn't from Vane. Both brothers looked toward the compound's eastern wing. What? Corvin started. The explosion cut him off. Fire bloomed against the night sky, orange and violent. Screams erupted from the breeding wing. Alarm bells began to ring. Corvin shifted and ran toward the chaos. Vane stood frozen in his cell, reaching through the bond. Brenna? Brenna, what's happening? Her response came back fierce and wild. Leor! They came back. They're destroying the breeding wing. Vane's heart lurched. Leor, Brenna's childhood friend, the one who'd betrayed her years ago. What were they doing, attacking the compound? Are you hurt? No. The explosion opened my cell. I'm running. But Vane, her fear spiked. Soren Blackthorn is here, his whole pack. This isn't a rescue. This is a raid. Understanding hit Vane like a punch to the gut. Soren didn't come to save Brenna. He came to take her. The rival Alpha wanted the prophecy child for himself. No. Vane gripped the bars harder. No, no, no. He threw his full strength against the door one more time. The hinges, already weakened, finally gave way. The door crashed to the stone floor, silver bars scattering. Vane shifted mid-stride, hitting the corridor as a black wolf, and ran toward the eastern wing. Toward Brenna. Toward whatever hell awaited them both. Back in the breeding wing, chaos reigned. Brenna ran through smoke-filled corridors, naked and disoriented, following the screams and the sounds of fighting. The explosion had blown open half the wing's cells, freeing the imprisoned females. Some ran for the exits. Others collapsed, too broken by the program to flee. Eveline grabbed Brenna's arm, thrust clothing at her. "Dress, quickly." Brenna pulled on the rough tunic and pants, her hands shaking. "What's happening?" "Soren Blackthorn." The old healer's face was grim. "Lior betrayed you again, child. Sold information about the breeding program to the rival pack. Soren wants you for his own purposes. Where's Vane?" "Coming. I can feel his wolf from here. He's tearing through the compound." Eveline gripped Brenna's shoulders. "Listen to me. Soren will try to take you alive. Corvin will try to recapture you. Your only chance is to run. Get to Knifesong Canyon." "The canyon? But that's where the prophecy says you'll make your choice." "Yes." Eveline's eyes burned with urgency. "It's also the one place neither pack can follow. Sacred ground protected by old magic. If you can reach it, you'll have time to think, to plan." "I can't leave Vane. He'll find you. The bond will guide him." The healer pressed something into Brenna's hand. A small knife, silver-edged. "Now run, child. And whatever happens at that canyon, remember, prophecies can be interpreted many ways. Don't let anyone else tell you what your destiny must be." A massive wolf burst through the smoke, gray and scarred, with Soren Blackthorn's cruel intelligence in its eyes. Eveline shoved Brenna toward a blown-out wall. "Go!" Brenna ran. She hit the forest at full speed, her bare feet finding purchase on familiar ground. Behind her, the compound burned. Wolves snarled and fought. Someone screamed, she couldn't tell who. Through the bond, Vane's voice. "Where are you?" "Running. East, toward Knifesong Canyon." Eveline said, "I know. I heard her. Keep running. I'm coming." She felt him shift direction, felt his powerful wolf form eating up the distance between them. But she also felt others in pursuit. Soren, Orvex, Lior, and something else. Something wrong. A presence that didn't feel like wolf or human, but something in between. Something ancient. The Umber Lords, she realized with creeping horror. The barrier is already weakening. They're bleeding through. "Brenna, run faster." She did. She ran like her father had taught her when she was small. Low and quiet, using the terrain, doubling back to confuse her scent. The forest blurred around her. Her lungs burned. Her feet bled. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Behind her, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. Ahead, the forest began to change. The trees grew twisted, wrong. The ground became rocky. She could hear it now, the distant song of Knifesong Canyon. The river running over blade-sharp stones. The place where her father had died. The place where the prophecy said she would make her choice. She burst through the tree line and skidded to a halt at the canyon's edge. The river sang below, dark and terrible and familiar. The moon hung full overhead, not eclipsed yet, not bleeding red. She still had time. 6 months, Corvin had said. But as she stood there breathing hard, she realized the timeline had changed. The barrier between worlds was tearing. She could see it now. Rifts in the air, glimpses of shadow and eyes and hunger. The Umber Lords were coming early. The prophecy is accelerating, Eveline's voice echoed in her memory. Your bonding may have triggered it. Footsteps behind her. Brenna spun, knife raised. Soren Blackthorn stepped into the clearing in human form, flanked by 6 of his pack. He was handsome in a cruel way, all sharp angles and predatory grace. Brenna Ashborn, he said, spreading his hands in mock greeting. The child of 2 worlds. I've been looking for you. Stay back. She held the knife steady despite her shaking hands. Or what? You'll stab me? He laughed. I don't want to hurt you, little hybrid. I want to help you. Help me? She spat the words. By raiding the compound? By helping Lior betray me? Lior had their own reasons for revenge against the Cipher Pack. I simply provided opportunity. Soren took a step closer. But yes, I am here to help. Corvin would have broken you in that breeding program. I'm offering freedom. At what price? Your cooperation with the prophecy. His eyes gleamed. I have scholars who've studied the Veilrend text for decades. We know what must be done at the eclipse. And unlike Corvin, I won't force you. I'll give you a choice. What choice? Join my pack. Bond with one of my wolves. We can break your bond with Vane, with time. Help us navigate the prophecy correctly. He gestured to the canyon behind her. Or jump. End it now. Seal the barrier with your death before the Umber Lords break through completely. Brenna's mind raced. Neither option was real freedom. There's a third choice, she said slowly. Oh? Soren's smile widened. Do tell. I wait for my mate, and then we find our own way through this. Soren's expression darkened. Vane's cipher is not coming, little mongrel. My wolves have him surrounded. He'll be dead within the hour. Liar! Vane's voice came strong through the bond. I'm almost there. Hold on. Relief and terror flooded Brenna in equal measure. You're wrong, she told Soren. Am I? He tilted his head. Then where is he? A black wolf exploded from the tree line like vengeance incarnate. Vane hit Soren's flank wolves before they could react, his jaws closing around one's throat. He released, spun, and took down another. His movements were economical, brutal, honed by years of war. Soren shifted immediately, lunging for Vane. They collided in a snarling mass of fur and fangs. Brenna ran toward them, but one of Soren's pack cut her off, a rust-colored female, teeth bared. Behind you! Vane's warning came too late. Hands grabbed Brenna from behind. Lior's familiar voice in her ear. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But this is the only way to end the curse. Lior, human form, tears streaming down their face, dragged Brenna toward the canyon's edge. No! Brenna struggled, but Lior was stronger, trained. The prophecy requires your death, Lior sobbed. I studied it. I know what it means. If you die here, now, the barrier seals. The Umber Lords can't cross. Both our worlds are saved. By killing me? Brenna's feet slid on the loose stone. By letting you be the hero you were meant to be. Lior's grip tightened. I loved you, Brenna. As a friend. As more. And I can't watch you suffer anymore. This is mercy. They were at the edge now. The river sang below, through the bond Vane's panic. Brenna! She saw him across the clearing, saw Soren's jaws locked on his shoulder, holding him down, saw blood matting his dark fur. Their eyes met. In that moment, Brenna understood. This was the choice. Not in 6 months. Now. Die and seal the barrier, saving everyone but destroying her bond with Vane. Or fight to live, risking the Umber Lord's full emergence, betting everything on Eveline's version of the prophecy. Jump together, Dream Vane had said. But they weren't together. They were separated by 20 feet and a pack of enemy wolves. If she jumped now, she'd jump alone. Lior's grip shifted, preparing to push. Brenna made her choice. She drove her elbow back into Lior's ribs, twisted, and plunged the silver knife into their shoulder. Leor screamed, grip loosening. Brenna tore free, stumbled forward, and fell. Not into the canyon. Onto solid ground as Vane, impossibly desperately, broke free from Soren and caught her. His human arms wrapped around her, and they rolled away from the edge together. "I've got you!" he gasped, blood streaming from the wounds on his shoulder. "I've got you!" Soren rose, ready to attack again, but the ground beneath them began to shake. The rifts in the air widened. Something massive moved behind them, shadow and hunger and ancient rage. An Umber Lord was coming through. "No," Soren breathed, his eyes wide with horror. "It's too soon. The eclipse isn't for months." "The bond triggered it," Eveline's voice came from the tree line. The old healer limped into the clearing, her face grim. Two souls choosing each other freely, breaking all the old rules. It weakened the barrier faster than the prophecy predicted. The Umber Lord's hand, massive, made of smoke and claws, reached through the rift. Everyone scattered. Everyone except Brenna and Vane. They stood at the canyon's edge, hands clasped, the bond blazing between them like a sun. "Tell me what to do," Vane said urgently. "Tell me how to stop this." Brenna looked at the rift, at the Umber Lord emerging, at Eveline, who watched with ancient, knowing eyes. And she understood. "The prophecy doesn't require my death," she said slowly. "It requires a sacrifice, the breaking of a bond at the moment of deepest connection. So we break it." Vane's voice was steady, though she felt his agony through their connection. "We do it now, before—" "No." Brenna gripped his hands tighter. "Not our bond. The other bond. The one that started this whole curse." She turned to Eveline. "The Umber Lords cursed us because we killed their children, yes?" The healer nodded. "Then we don't break the bond between Vane and me." Brenna's voice grew stronger. "We break the bond of hatred. We acknowledge the crime. We mourn the loss. We ask forgiveness." "That's insane," Soren snarled. "You can't negotiate with Umber Lords. Watch me." Brenna released Vane's hand and walked toward the rift. "Brenna, no!" Vane's terror flooded the bond. But she kept walking. She stopped at the edge of the rift and knelt. "I am Brenna Ashborn," she called out, her voice carrying over the river's song. "Child of two worlds, I speak for the wolves who cannot speak for themselves, for the crime committed against your children, for the slaughter, for the silence, for the centuries of refusing to acknowledge the wrong. I am sorry." The Umber Lord's hand stopped moving. Something shifted in the rift. An eye, vast and ancient and burning with rage, focused on her. "We cannot undo what was done," Brenna continued, tears streaming down her face. "But I offer you what I can. Truth, acknowledgement, and a promise. If you lift this curse, if you let our worlds exist in peace again, I will make sure your children are remembered, honored, never forgotten again." Silence. Then, impossibly, a voice like grinding stone. "One sacrifice remains." Brenna's heart sank. "What sacrifice?" "The bond that chains you. Break it and all is forgiven." Behind her, Vane made a sound of protest, but Eveline stepped forward, her ancient voice ringing clear. "Not her mate bond, old one. You know that's not what the prophecy meant." The eye turned to Eveline. "Speak." "The bond that chains her," Eveline said, "is the bond of shame, of believing she's a mistake, of carrying the weight of her father's execution, of her mother's death, of every moment the pack told her she was wrong for existing." The healer looked at Brenna with infinite compassion. "That's the bond that must break. Not love. Shame." Understanding crashed over Brenna like a wave. The sacrifice wasn't vain, wasn't the bond between them. It was the bond between Brenna and her own self-hatred. The chain she'd carried for 20 years. The belief that she was broken, wrong, a mistake. "Will you break it?" the Umber Lord asked. Brenna thought of her father's golden eyes. "I love you." She thought of Vane's hands, gentle on her scars. Beautiful. Every part of you. She thought of Eveline's words. You're the bravest person I know. And she thought of herself, the girl who'd survived shifts that should have killed her, who'd faced down alphas, who'd chosen love over fear again and again. Yes, she whispered. Then louder. Yes, I break it. I am not a mistake. I am not broken. I am Brenna Ashborn, daughter of Matthias and Elena. I am the child of two worlds, and I choose to live. The words rang out like a bell. The bond of shame, invisible, but so heavy, shattered. And Brenna felt it break, felt the weight lift, felt herself straighten under a burden she'd carried so long she'd forgotten it was there. The rift began to close. The Umber Lord's eye held hers one moment longer. Forgiven, it said. Remembered. The curse is lifted. The rift sealed. The barrier between worlds shimmered once, then solidified. But different now. Thinner. Permeable. Not a wall, but a veil, allowing passage for those who needed it. Brenna stood at the canyon's edge, tears streaming down her face, and felt the change ripple through her body. Her wolf rose smoothly for the first time in her life. No pain, no breaking. Just a seamless shift into silver-white fur, perfect and whole. She threw her head back and howled, pure joy, pure triumph, pure freedom. Vane shifted beside her, his black wolf pressing against her flank. You did it, he said through the bond. You broke the curse. We did it, she corrected. Together. Around them the clearing was silent with shock. Soren stared, his expression unreadable. Leor had collapsed, sobbing. Eveline smiled, looking centuries younger. And then from the compound, other wolves began to arrive. Corvin at the lead, bloodied from fighting Soren's pack. He stopped when he saw Brenna's perfect shift, saw the closed rift, saw his brother standing beside her. What have you done? He breathed. Brenna shifted back to human form, standing tall and unashamed. I fulfilled the prophecy, she said simply. The curse is lifted. Humans and wolves can coexist again. The Umber Lords have forgiven us. And she looked at Vane, who'd shifted back to stand beside her. And I'm not yours to control anymore, Corvin. I belong to no one but myself. Corvin's face went through a dozen emotions, rage, confusion, calculation. Finally, he laughed. It sounded almost genuine. Well then, he said. I suppose we'll need to renegotiate pack structure. Starting with the fact that my brother has apparently bonded with the most powerful hybrid in existence. I'm not powerful, Brenna started. You just negotiated with Umber Lords and broke a 3-century-old curse, Eveline interjected dryly. You're powerful, child. Accept it. Brenna looked down at her hands, the same hands that had always seemed too human, too fragile. But now she saw them differently. Strong. Capable. Hers. Vane's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing. So what now? He asked quietly. Brenna looked around the clearing, at the rival pack watching warily, at Corvin's pack, shocked into silence, at Eveline, nodding approval, at Leor, still weeping on the ground. Now, she said, we figure out what peace looks like. Chapter 5. Remaking the World. The aftermath of breaking a 300-year-old curse wasn't clean. It wasn't simple. And it certainly wasn't quiet. 3 days after the canyon, Brenna woke in Vane's bed, their bed now, to the sound of arguing outside. Through the bond, she felt Vane's wry amusement even before he spoke. They've been at it since dawn. Corvin wants to exile Soren's entire pack. Soren wants reparations for the wolves killed in the raid. And Eveline keeps telling them both they're being idiots. Brenna smiled despite herself. Shouldn't you be out there? Mediating? Probably. He tightened his arm around her waist, pulling her closer. But I'd rather be here. She turned in his embrace, studying his face. The shadows under his eyes had lessened over the past 3 days. His nightmares had quieted, not gone, but manageable now. The bond helped. When terror woke him at night, she was there, grounding him, reminding him he wasn't back in the war. Just as he grounded her when her own demons surfaced. "We can't hide forever," she said softly. "I know." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I just wanted one more morning of pretending the world doesn't need us." But the world did need them, especially Brenna. Word had spread fast about what happened at Knife Song Canyon. Brenna Ashborn, the mongrel, the mistake, had lifted the curse, had negotiated with Umber Lords, had transformed perfectly, her wolf form strong and whole. Packs from 3 territories were gathering, wanting to see her, to understand what the lifted curse meant for them, and Brenna, who'd spent 20 years trying to disappear, now had to figure out how to lead. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. "Vane? Brenna?" Eveline's voice came from outside. "You need to see this." They dressed quickly and emerged to find the old healer standing on the porch, pointing toward the forest. Humans. A group of them stood at the tree line, hesitant but curious. A woman in the front held a small child's hand. "They started arriving this morning," Eveline said quietly. "Word reached the human settlements about the barrier thinning. They want to know if it's safe, if they can cross into pack territory without dying." Brenna's breath caught. The curse had kept humans and wolves violently separated for centuries. Any human who crossed into packlands sickened and died within days. Any wolf who stayed too long in human cities went mad. But now, the barrier is permeable, Eveline continued. Not gone, but negotiable. Those who mean no harm can cross. Those who come with violence still face consequences. Vane's hand found Brenna's. "What do we do?" Brenna looked at the humans, at their fear and hope mixed together, and made a decision. She walked toward them. Vane followed without question, the bond warm and steady between them. The humans tensed as they approached. The woman with the child stepped forward, her chin lifted despite her obvious terror. "I'm Elena Riverborn," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "From the settlement of Ashwick. We heard the curse was broken, that a child of 2 worlds did it." Brenna stopped a respectful distance away. "I'm Brenna Ashborn, and yes, the curse is lifted. You can cross safely now, as long as you come in peace." Elena's eyes widened. "Ashborn? You're Elena's daughter?" The world tilted. "You knew my mother?" Brenna whispered. "We were cousins. I was 14 when Elena fell in love with Matthias. I was there when her family disowned her." Tears filled Elena's eyes. "I've spent 20 years wondering what happened to her baby. If you survived. If you—" Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I should have come for you. I should have tried." "You would have died," Brenna said gently. "The curse would have killed you." "I know, but I still should have tried." Elena wiped her eyes. "When we heard what you did, how you broke the curse, I had to come. Had to see if it was real. If you were real." Brenna felt something crack open in her chest. Family. Her mother's family. Not the pack that had raised her with cruelty, but actual blood relatives who'd mourned her mother's loss. "I'm real," she managed, "and you're welcome here. All of you." The child, a little girl, maybe 5, tugged her mother's hand. "Mama, is she a wolf?" Elena hesitated. Brenna smiled and knelt to the child's level. "Yes. Would you like to see?" The girl nodded, eyes wide. Brenna shifted. It was still breathtaking, even after 3 days of practicing. The seamless flow from human to wolf. No pain, no breaking. Just the joy of becoming. Her silver-white wolf form sat calmly as the little girl approached, tentatively reaching out to touch her fur. "Soft," the child breathed. "Pretty." Pretty, Brenna thought. Not monster. Not mistake. Pretty. She shifted back, and the child giggled with delight. That's amazing, Elena's face shone with wonder. And you can teach others? Help hybrids shift properly? I think so. Brenna hadn't considered it before, but yes, if her own body had learned to shift correctly, maybe she could help others. The curse twisted our transformations, made them painful. But now that it's lifted, everything changes, Vane finished quietly. He was right. Everything was changing, and they were at the center of it. 1 week after the canyon, the gathering took place in neutral territory, the meadow where packlands met human settlements. Corvin stood on one side, flanked by his most loyal wolves. Soren and his pack occupied the opposite position. Elena and representatives from 3 human settlements filled the space between, nervous but determined. And in the center, Brenna and Vane. Eveline had insisted they mediate. You're the only ones both sides trust, she'd said. The wolves respect your bloodlines. The humans see you as proof that coexistence is possible. Brenna felt wildly unqualified, but she stood there anyway, Vane's presence steady beside her. We're here, Corvin began, his voice carrying over the assembled crowd. Because the curse is broken. The barrier between our kinds is negotiable now. We need to establish rules for this new world before someone gets killed. Rules that favor wolves, I assume, one of the human representatives said dryly. As always. Rules that keep everyone alive, Brenna interjected before Corvin could respond. Which means compromise. From everyone. She looked around the gathering. For 300 years we've been separated. Wolves and humans killing each other on sight. The curse ensured that. But it wasn't always this way. Before the Umber Lords' curse, before the slaughter of their children, humans and wolves lived together. Traded. Intermarried. That's ancient history, Soren growled. We're different now. Are we? Vane stepped forward. Or have we just forgotten how to coexist? Brenna's parents proved it was possible. They loved each other across the divide, died for it. And their daughter, he looked at Brenna with such pride it made her throat tight. Their daughter broke the curse that killed them. Silence fell over the meadow. Elena spoke up, her voice clear. My cousin Elena loved Matthias Ashborn, knowing it would cost her everything. Knowing her family would disown her. Knowing the curse would probably kill her in the end. She looked at Brenna. But she did it anyway. Because love doesn't care about barriers. And if we want to honor her sacrifice, we need to at least try to make peace. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the humans. Corvin's expression remained skeptical. Peace requires trust. And trust requires proof. Then we'll give you proof, Brenna said firmly. She'd been thinking about this for days, planning with Eveline and Vane. We establish a trial period. 6 months. Vane's hand squeezed hers at the number. 6 months. The same timeline the prophecy had originally given them. Where humans and wolves can cross into each other's territories freely, under supervision. We set up trade routes, cultural exchanges. Humans teach us their crafts. We teach them about the forest, about magic. And if it goes wrong, Soren challenged, then we reassess. But we don't go to war. Brenna met his gaze steadily. We've all lost enough to violence. My father. Vane's mind to war trauma. Countless others on both sides. If we can't make peace now, after everything, then the Umber Lords were right to curse us. The words hung heavy in the air. Finally, Corvin spoke. 6 months. But I want guarantees. If a human harms a wolf during this trial, there are consequences. Same if a wolf harms a human. Agreed, Elena said. Equal justice. And we need a council, one of the other human representatives added. Representatives from each group to handle disputes. 4 wolves, 4 humans, Vane suggested, with Brenna as the tiebreaker when needed. All eyes turned to Brenna. She wanted to protest. She had no experience leading, no authority. But looking around the meadow, she realized that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that she stood between two worlds, had always stood between them. Maybe that's exactly what made her qualified. "I'll do it," she said quietly, "but not alone. Vane stands with me." Corvin's eyebrow rose. "You'd let my brother share power with you?" "He's not just your brother anymore. He's my mate." Brenna's voice grew stronger. "And he's proven he cares about peace more than politics. We do this together, or not at all." Vane's surprise and love flooded the bond. After a moment, Corvin nodded. "Acceptable." Soren was slower to agree, but eventually he too inclined his head. The council was formed. The trial period set. As the gathering dispersed, Elena approached Brenna one more time. "Will you visit Ashwick?" she asked hopefully. "Meet the rest of the family? Your mother's parents are still alive. They'd like to meet you, if you're willing." Brenna's heart clenched. Her mother's parents. The ones who'd disowned Elena for loving a wolf. "Will they accept me?" she asked quietly. "They've had 20 years to regret their choices." Elena's voice was gentle. "And when I told them what you did, how you broke the curse, how you're trying to build peace," my aunt cried. "Said she'd been wrong. Said she wanted a chance to make amends." Brenna looked at Vane. He squeezed her hand. "Your choice," his expression said. "I'm with you either way." "I'll come," Brenna decided. "But Vane comes with me." Elena smiled. "I wouldn't expect anything less." 2 weeks after the canyon. The visit to Ashwick was harder than Brenna expected. Her grandparents, Martin and Elise, met her at the settlement gates. They looked old, worn by grief and regret. When Elise saw Brenna's face, she collapsed into sobs. "You look just like her," she wept, "just like my Elena." The house was filled with her mother's things. Paintings she'd done, books she'd loved, a locket with Matthias's picture inside, proof that despite her family's disapproval, Elena had loved him until her last breath. Brenna held the locket and cried for the first time in years, not from pain, but from grief finally allowed to surface. Vane sat beside her through all of it, his presence steady, his hand in hers. Martin spoke quietly about Elena's childhood, how bright she'd been, how stubborn. "She was fierce, your mother. Once she made up her mind about something, nothing could change it." "She sounds like Brenna," Vane said, and Brenna felt his pride through the bond. Elise took Brenna's hands in her weathered ones. "We were wrong. So wrong to turn our backs on her, to refuse to help when she needed us." Her voice broke. "Can you forgive us?" Brenna thought about the bond she'd broken at the canyon. The shame, the belief that she was wrong for existing. "I'm still learning how to forgive myself," she said honestly. "But yes, I can try to forgive you too." It wasn't perfect reconciliation. Too much pain stood between them. But it was a start. And starts, Brenna was learning, were enough. 1 month after the canyon, the nightmares came for Vane on a cold autumn night. Brenna woke to find him thrashing beside her, trapped in memory. She knew better than to touch him during these episodes. His wolf might react violently, seeing friend as foe. Instead, she spoke, low and steady. "Vane, you're home. You're safe. The war is over." His thrashing slowed. "You're in our bed. I'm here. You're not in the prison. Not in the war camp." His eyes opened, wild, unfocused. "Breathe with me," she whispered. "In. Out. In. Out." Slowly, painfully, he came back to himself. When he finally focused on her face, shame flooded the bond. "I'm sorry," he rasped. "I thought I was past this." Trauma doesn't work on a timeline. Brenna moved closer, let him choose whether to accept the comfort. "You told me that yourself, remember? When I apologized for my failed shifts." He pulled her against his chest, his heartbeat thundering. "It was the council meeting today. One of the humans. He had the same voice as the wolf who tortured me in the prison. Same accent. It triggered something. Did you tell him? No, I left. Excused myself before I did something I'd regret. Vane's arms tightened around her. I hate this. Hate being broken still. You're not broken. Brenna tilted her head back to look at him. You're healing. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. She touched his face gently. Broken means unfixable. Healing means getting better, even if it's slow. Even if there are setbacks. Vane was quiet for a long moment. Then, how did you survive it? 20 years of pain, of being told you were wrong. How did you not break? Brenna thought about it carefully. I think I was broken. For a long time. The curse broke me. The pack broke me. The isolation broke me. But breaking isn't the end. Sometimes things that break learn to grow back stronger in the fractured places. Like bones, Vane murmured. Exactly like bones. She smiled against his chest. We're both covered in fractures, Vane, but we're growing back. Together. He held her tighter. I don't deserve you. Probably not. She felt his surprised laugh rumble through his chest. But you're stuck with me anyway, bond and all. Best thing that ever happened to me, he said fiercely. This bond. You. Even with my nightmares? My failed shifts when I'm stressed? Especially with those. He kissed her forehead. Because it means you trust me enough to be imperfect around me. And that's everything. They lay in the darkness, wrapped around each other, two broken people healing in the fractured places. Outside, the world was changing. But in this moment, they were enough. 3 months after the canyon Lior came to Brenna during the first snowfall, she found them sitting outside the guest house where Vane had given them shelter, at Brenna's request, over Corvin's objections. You tried to kill me, Brenna said without preamble, sitting beside them on the steps. I did. Lior didn't look at her. I thought I was saving you. Thought death was better than watching you suffer through the prophecy. That wasn't your choice to make. I know. Their voice cracked. I know that now. I was selfish. Couldn't bear watching you in pain anymore, so I decided to end it. Didn't matter what you wanted. Snow drifted down around them. Brenna watched it settle on the ground, thinking about how to navigate this conversation. Why did you betray me the first time? She asked finally. When we were children. You were my only friend. And then you weren't. Lior flinched. Corvin found out we were friends. Told me that if I kept associating with you, I'd be marked as contaminated too. That my family would suffer. They finally looked at her, eyes red. I was 12, Brenna. I was terrified, so I told him where you liked to hide. Told him your routines. Helped him make your life hell, because it meant mine stayed safe. You were a child, Brenna said quietly. Children make impossible choices when they're scared. That doesn't excuse it. No, but it explains it. Brenna pulled her knees to her chest. I hated you for years. Dreamed about what I'd say if I ever saw you again. All the ways I'd make you hurt like you hurt me. And now? Brenna thought about the bond of shame she'd broken. About forgiveness, for her grandparents, for herself. Now I think holding on to hate takes more energy than I have to spare. She looked at Lior directly. I'm not ready to be your friend again. I don't know if I ever will be. The trust is too broken. Lior nodded, accepting. But, Brenna continued, I can forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying the weight of your betrayal is exhausting. So I'm putting it down. Tears spilled down Lior's cheeks. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just do better. Be better. Make the choice now that you couldn't make at 12. I will. Lior stood, wiped their eyes. I'm leaving tomorrow. Going to the Eastern Territories, joining a pack that works with human settlements. Trying to build the kind of peace you're building here. Good luck, Brenna said, and meant it. After Leor left, Vane emerged from the house, 2 cups of tea in hand. He passed one to Brenna and sat beside her. "That looked hard," he observed. "It was." Brenna sipped the tea, grateful for its warmth. "But necessary. You're more forgiving than I'd be." "I don't know about that." She leaned against his shoulder. "I think I'm just tired of carrying ghosts. Between my father, my mother, the Pack's cruelty, Leor's betrayal. If I hold on to all of it, there's no room left for anything new." "Room for what?" She turned to look at him, a small smile playing at her lips. "Room for us. For the future we're building. For," she hesitated, then plunged forward. "For the possibility that maybe, someday, we could have a family. Children who won't be called mongrels, who won't have to suffer like I did." Vane's expression shifted through surprise, wonder, and fierce protectiveness. "You want that?" he asked carefully. "After everything Solandra tried to force on you?" "Not now. Maybe not for years." Brenna threaded her fingers through his. "But someday, when the world is safer, when we've built something stable, yes, I think I want that. With you." Vane pulled her close, and she felt the depth of his emotion through the bond, love and hope, and the fragile belief that maybe, just maybe, they could have something beautiful after all the pain. "Someday," he agreed. "When you're ready. We'll build that future together." They sat in the falling snow, 2 people who'd survived the unsurvivable, planning for a tomorrow neither had dared to dream of before. 6 months after the canyon. The eclipse arrived right on schedule. Brenna stood at Knife Song Canyon with Vane, Eveline, and a small gathering of witnesses from all communities, wolf and human alike. This time there was no terror, no impossible choice, just acknowledgement. "The prophecy said I'd come here during the eclipse and make a choice," Brenna addressed the gathered crowd. "And I did. 6 months ago, I chose to break the bond of shame instead of the bond of love, to acknowledge old wrongs instead of perpetuating them, to build peace instead of maintaining division." She looked at the canyon, at the river still singing over knife-sharp stones. "My father died here because he loved to cross boundaries. My mother died because she refused to let those boundaries define her." Brenna's voice grew stronger. "Their deaths weren't meaningless. They showed us that love is stronger than curses, that choosing each other, despite everything, can change the world." She turned to face Vane, took his hands. "6 months ago, you offered me something I never thought I'd have. Partnership, love, a bond freely chosen instead of forced upon me." Her eyes shone with tears. "You gave me time to heal, space to grow, the courage to face my demons." "You did the same for me," Vane said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved me from numbness, from being lost in my own ghosts. You gave me a reason to keep fighting." Brenna turned back to the crowd. "The prophecy is fulfilled. The curse is broken. Humans and wolves can coexist again. And the sacrifice it required wasn't death. It was growth, change, the courage to become something better than what we were." The eclipse reached totality. For a moment the world held its breath. Then light returned, and with it, a sense of rightness settling over the land. The barrier between worlds shimmered, visible for just an instant. Not a wall, but a permeable membrane. Strong enough to maintain order, thin enough to allow connection. Perfect balance. Eveline stepped forward, her ancient eyes bright. "The prophecy is complete. Brenna Ashborn has remade the worlds, not through destruction, but through healing. Let it be recorded for all time. This is how curses end. Not with blood, but with courage." The gathered crowd erupted in cheers. Brenna let herself be swept up in it, in the celebration, in the hope, in the impossible reality that they'd actually done it. They'd changed everything. Later, when the crowd had dispersed and only she and Vane remained at the canyon's edge, she finally allowed herself to process it all. "We did it," she whispered. "You did it," Vane corrected. "I just stood beside you. That's all I needed." She leaned into him. Someone to stand beside me, to believe I was more than what the world said I was. "You're everything," he said fiercely. "Everything and more." They stood at the edge of Knife Song Canyon as the eclipse faded. The place where her father had died, where she'd almost died, where the prophecy had demanded impossible choices. But they'd found another way. Not the easy way, not the painless way, but the right way. "What now?" Vane asked. Brenna smiled. "Now we live. We build the peace we promised. We help others heal like we're healing. We make sure my parents' sacrifice meant something. And someday we have that family we talked about." She looked up at him. "Someday we show the world what children born from love across boundaries can become. Not mongrels, not mistakes." "Bridges," Vane finished. "Bridges," she agreed. They left the canyon hand in hand, walking toward a future they'd fought for, bled for, nearly died for. A future where broken things could heal, where curses could be lifted, where love, fierce, stubborn, impossible love, could change the world. Epilogue. 2 years later. Brenna stood in the council hall, her hand resting on her swollen belly, watching representatives from 7 territories argue about trade routes. Vane sat at her right hand, his presence steady as always. He'd grown into his role as co-leader with surprising ease, his war-earned strategic mind perfect for navigating complex political situations. Aveline sat at her left, ancient and amused, occasionally interjecting when the arguments grew too heated. "The northern route is more direct," Corvin was saying. He'd mellowed somewhat over the years, though he remained skeptical of human integration. "But the southern route passes through more settlements," Elena countered. "Better for cultural exchange." "We could establish both," Brenna suggested. "Use the northern route for urgent trade, the southern for regular commerce and exchange programs." The representatives considered this. "Acceptable," Corvin finally said. "Agreed," Elena nodded. Another crisis averted, another step toward lasting peace. As the meeting adjourned, Vane's hand found Brenna's belly, feeling their child move beneath his palm. "Active today," he murmured. "Takes after their father," Brenna teased. "Never still." "Or their mother," he countered. "Stubborn and strong." They'd waited 2 years to start their family. 2 years of building peace, of healing their own wounds, of making sure the world was ready for a child born of 2 worlds. The pregnancy had been carefully monitored by Aveline. Unlike Brenna's mother, Brenna's body handled it well. The curses lifting had corrected the genetic issues that made hybrid pregnancies so dangerous. Their child would be the first born into the new world, the first who would never know the pain of the curse, a symbol of everything they'd fought for. "Nervous?" Vane asked quietly. "Terrified," Brenna admitted. "What if I'm a terrible mother? What if I can't protect them from what? We've built a world where they can exist freely, where human and wolf mix without shame." Vane cupped her face gently. "And even if challenges come, and they will, they'll have us. They'll have this council, this community. They won't face it alone like you did." Brenna leaned into his touch. "Promise?" "Promise." That night they stood on their porch watching the moon rise over the forest. The same forest where they'd first found each other, where Brenna had broken apart, and Vane had put her back together. "Do you ever regret it?" Brenna asked. "Bonding with me? Taking on all of this?" Vane's answer came without hesitation. "Never. Not for a single moment. Even when I wake you up at night with failed shifts when I'm stressed?" "Even then," he smiled. "Though you haven't had a failed shift in over a year." It was true. The more Brenna healed emotionally, the more stable her transformations became. Eveline theorized that the physical symptoms had always been tied to trauma, the body manifesting what the mind couldn't process. Even when I'm impossible during council meetings? Especially then. He pulled her close, careful of her belly. You're magnificent when you're impossible. Fierce and brilliant and utterly unstoppable. Flatterer. Truth-teller. He kissed her forehead. You changed the world, Brenna. Broke a curse, built peace, gave hope to everyone caught between two worlds. You're the bravest person I've ever known. We did it together, she reminded him. I couldn't have done any of it without you. Then we're both brave. He smiled against her hair. And our child will be brave too. With parents like us, how could they be anything else? Brenna placed her hand over his where it rested on her belly. I love you. I love you. He turned her in his arms, his dark eyes shining in the moonlight. I loved you when you were broken. I love you now that you're healing. And I'll love you through whatever comes next. Even when I'm old and gray and even more impossible, especially then. They stood together under the moon, the same moon that had witnessed her father's death, the breaking of the curse, the remaking of the world. But this time, it witnessed something else. Hope. Healing. Love that had survived the unsurvivable. And the promise of a future built on bridges instead of walls. Brenna had spent 20 years believing she was a mistake. A mongrel. Something broken and wrong. But standing here with Vane, their child growing beneath her heart, peace spreading across territories that had known only violence, she finally understood the truth. She wasn't a mistake. She was exactly what the world needed. A child of two worlds who'd chosen to become a bridge between them. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The end.